All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Bill, especially for allowing me to talk about creativity and its application into business. And it's a subject that's autobiographical and the result of an existential moment that occurred in my life when I was forced, as Bill said, to parlay my soft skills learned in music and pivot into the world of commercial banking. So this presentation will be divided into three short sections. But before we begin, I wanted to identify the pain or motivating reason behind this presentation. A pandemic not often talked about, which we face with today's children and young teenagers, is the deleterious effects of emulation. Never in human history has there been a need to imitate other people, not because we respect and admire them, but because we are envious. People constantly evaluate themselves and others in domains such as attractiveness, wealth, intelligence, and success. And research has shown that people who regularly compare themselves to others may find motivation to improve, but may also experience feelings of deep dissatisfaction, guilt, or remorse, and engage in destructive behaviors such as lying or disordered eating. The result has doubled the suicide rate for teenagers over last year at this time. So this is the pain I wish to refer to as I introduce a potential solution with the underlying theme in this presentation: progress is looking backward. Interesting quote from Giuseppe Verdi. Looking backward to getting to the chassis of our original self, which will bridge and connect the three short presentations and potentially offer a healthy and entertaining solution to those individuals who determine their own social and personal wealth based on how they stack up against others. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with my background, just an abridged Reader's Digest version in terms of my creative background, I did win the Henry Mancini Scholarship and got a chance to study with this great composer, which brought me from Boston to California. Received an Emmy nomination for Paradise, starring the handsome Lee Horsley while writing music for Dallas and Knots Landing. First composer to rescore an existing film. Those of you who are fans of Sam Peckinpah, the great Major Dundee starring Charlton Heston, was restored by Sony Pictures with my score. Twice winner of the Heritage Award for Film Restoration from the Academy of Arts and Sciences, and the first composer in 20th Century Fox history to have one of their silent films, in this particular example, The Iron Horse, directed by a very young 27-year-old John Ford, selected by the Venice Film Festival. As a theatrical composer, Caliendo World Music Publishing, my company, has published over 400 of my works, 10 of which have won first prize for newly published music, 3 of which are the subject of dissertations and archived in the Library of Congress, and the first American composer twice commissioned by the Vatican under John Paul II. My most recent commission this year was based on Song of Ice and Fire. Those of you who are familiar with the great George R. R. Martin's books, which turned into the seminal HBO series, A Game of Thrones. These are Gary Gianni's marvelous paintings commissioned by George R. R. Martin. These will be suspended over the orchestra on a scrim, and my music hopefully will give a visceral movement to these static prints. As a recording artist, a chosen performer for Bob Hope's 90th birthday, 14 CD recordings, studio musician for TV and film soundtracks, and still tour with the Caliendo Trio. And finally, as a conductor of Hollywood soundtracks, I conducted my score to The Iron Horse with the RTD Orchestra at the National Concert Hall in Dublin, Ireland. My scores to Hollywood have been performed with major symphonies like the LA Phil at the Hollywood Bowl, and there I am with my lovely best friend, my dear wife. So why? I assume some of you may be asking, why does such a creative person with such a resume have to pivot into commercial banking? But more importantly, how? How did creative people think or affect my success as a commercial banker without a formal education in business or any experience working in corporate America? And at the same time I pivoted into banking, Daniel Pink published his phenomenal bestseller, A Whole New Mind, with a very interesting subtitle, Why Right-Brainers Will Rule the Future. Let's hear what Mr. Pink has to say about his book.
Our brains also have specialties. The left side specializes in tasks that are logical, linear, sequential, analytical. The right side specializes in tasks that are big picture, more about context than text, more about synthesis than analysis. I thought that offered a really powerful metaphor for where the jobs of the future, the work of the future is going. And the sorts of abilities that were metaphorically left brain, logical, linear, sequential, those abilities are still absolutely necessary. They're just not sufficient. Those kinds of more right brain abilities, I think, are actually becoming more important. And the reason is that the left brain abilities are easy to outsource, easy to automate, and there's an urgency now in a world of pretty significant material abundance for novelty, beauty, the sorts of things that come out of design thinking and aesthetic thinking. So what I tried to do there is identify some of the abilities that I think are going to be necessary in the workplace of the future.
So in summary, Mr. Pink's message is how critical soft skills are becoming in the corporate workplace. Since creative thinking is a dominant soft skill, what better way to begin our presentation than discovering what creativity is and how creative people think? So most people would define creativity as kind of the use of the imagination or original ideas, especially in the production of an artistic work. I would argue that after 20 years of banking, that the use of imagination exists in all fields and idioms. Now, when you study creative people, there's an obvious truth that the lives of creators are importantly motivated or guided by some quest for truth, some vision, some inner spirit, that inward voice that decides. A marvelous quote from Joseph Conrad, author of Heart of Darkness, once again adhering to the idea of listening inwardly to that unique voice inside that guides our passions and proclivities. So that desire that motivated medieval alchemists, like the one pictured here, is no different than any creative person listening to that inward voice. Here, the alchemist is trying to fabricate the prima materia, or first matter. The mythical quest of the alchemist is through a process of transmutation by which to fuse or reunite with the divine or original form. Sounds familiar and corresponds to Mr. Conrad's notion that creative people listen to that inward voice. To find the root of matter or to reunite with the divine is a metaphor for other idioms of thinking and creative pursuits, such as Darwin and Einstein, to disclose the essence of natural law, Picasso, Van Gogh, to express the essence of form and color, Pushkin, Shakespeare, Dickinson, to name the secrets of the human spirit. Now, in these three examples, natural science, painting, literature, the process of distilling raw material into prima materia releases a spark, which what Joseph Campbell would call, your sacred bliss in his extraordinary book, The Power of Myth. And what about music? Let me describe the composing process and how a composer creates reality creatively from the initial musical matter that enters my consciousness. So when I hear music, I hear the basic building blocks, the frame of the composition. The musical process begins in cognition and then seeks the widest metaphysical abstractions. What I mean by that is, what does confidence mean to me? What does love mean to me? What does terror mean to me? And I write permutation after permutation of that original idea into perceptual awareness, i.e., what you, the audience, hears in the concert hall. So when the Vatican commissioned me to compose a sacred musical drama, they asked me to use as my libretto the enigmatic mystical poetry of St. John of the Cross, a 16th century Carmelite monk who was devoted to contemplative prayer, a form of heightened meditation that once mastered can navigate the initiate to the topography of Christ's soul and memories. The mystics, like St. John of the Cross, sought union with God, the prima materia, first matter, to fuse or reunite with the original form. Now, here's a sonic example of what happened to me walking when I heard the original music for the First Vatican Commission. Pretty boring, I would admit, but that's what happens when I hear the original matter, the first matter. Now, here is what it sounds like from the Vatican, fully realized, that snippet. Now, my point here is that under this massive construction are those basic building blocks, the prima materia that inspired the complete sonic experience you just heard. Moving into section 2, let's now continue our journey and enter the section where the need to look backwards to reunite with the original form created a superstar. I once had the opportunity to talk with this legendary actor, and I asked him, what themes in childhood have affected you the most in establishing who you are today? And he replied quite quickly, I grew up in China where I learned how to be an acrobat. I watched Buster Keaton in the classic silent film The General and fell in love with film and comedy. And in 1973, I watched Enter the Dragon starring Bruce Lee and was introduced to Kung Fu. At some point, I combined my love for film, acting, comedy, and martial arts and became who I am today. Wow. How can you do this? Can it be learned? Can it be taught? Let me tell you. Hearing this story from Mr. Chan was a transformational moment in my life. Since differentiating yourself is so valuable in the music industry, any industry, Can one develop their musical identity by combining themes in childhood that have shown remarkable consistency over time? When I teach musicians how to establish a musical identity, I have open discussions with them on how their artistic vision evolved. What childhood memories do they recollect as being significant to have persuaded their development in music? Were they distinguished in their youth? Were their parents musical mentors? Ultimately, we look back in time and pinpoint those themes to help shape and market their vision as a creative force. Let me give you an example. I was coaching in a local high school music department. I gave the classroom of music students the following exercise: to write down 3 things they are deeply passionate about since they began to learn music. One of the girls asked me, "Christopher, I love playing the piano, specifically 19th century literature, and I love the human mind." I said, "Great. If you combine those themes together, how do you see yourself performing on stage?" And she responded, "I see myself more intimate with my audience, talking to them about what was going on in the composer's mind, then performing a single movement. In this way, it increases the audience's appreciation of the composer while allowing me to fulfill my passion for the human mind and perform late 19th century romantic piano music." The result, a paradigm shift in thinking, and that resulted in transformation. She began to see how she could separate herself from standard performance practices by incorporating themes she is passionate about. And as you can see, themes can be anything, like cooking. It's applying these themes, our greatest passions, that leads to creating our unique identity. Now, with Jackie Chan, Ben Franklin, Marie Curie, Leonardo da Vinci, Einstein, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Machiavelli, Martin Luther, Beethoven, all these individuals and countless others, there's a focusing of their ideas and vision early in childhood. What's impressive is the stability they show over many years. Now, not all of us are geniuses or display any special trait of genius. For many, your quest for truth is really a projection from the unconscious, dreams, fantasies, intuitions, visions, and so on. And it is from these that we draw the conclusion of a physical existence in ourselves. And like Malcolm Gladwell writes in his seminal book, Outliers, individuals like Jackie Chan, Bill Gates, from an early age accumulate the magic number of practice hours, 10,000, for that serendipitous moment that syncs hard work and commitment with real opportunity. Now, let's enter the final section here, where I'd like to demonstrate, through my own experience and testimony, how I was able to consciously apply 4 of my childhood themes, which helped me win the coveted Business Development of the Year award for commercial banking. The first theme I like to draw on is my love for film, which transitioned into video marketing. Now, a typical business development officer practice is to take COIs or referrals out for lunch. In this case, the classic salmon salad. And I quickly realized that following this perfunctory sales practice that every BDO usually used habitually, that the referrals I received was so far from our bank sweet spot. And this had to change. But how can I use creativity to change? By drawing my love for film, I decided to strategically, videotape a 2-minute corporate video of these COIs and referral partners in their office. And in this way, I got to meet the managing partners, give them a master copy of the video to use the copy to promote their services. And here's an example. Buying or selling a company is not easy. People who own companies are usually very good at running them, but have no idea how to sell them or how to buy them. Transactions can be very complex and detail-oriented.
Hello, my name is Brian Hogan, founder of Hogan Law.
The result, I became top of their mind, and the referrals dramatically improved in quality. A second theme I pulled from childhood is as a performing artist. And I continue to perform with the Caliendo trio. And, performers of classical music, as you know, perform in a concert hall. The bank I worked for at the time had a membership at the Los Securities Country Club. And to me, the club became the concert hall. Why not have the referral partners that I created video promos for appear as guest speakers to talk about trending topics useful to my clients and prospects? They would then invite their customer base to the event, and together both institutions could share their database of prospects and clients. So to me, the guest speakers became the musicians, and the country club became the concert hall. A third theme that I drew upon from my early childhood is my love of books, and which I transitioned into my love of self-publishing. Why not interview referral partners and publish articles about their firm and mass email the white paper via my database of prospects and clients? Taking it a step further, similar to a playbill or program notes you receive at a concert, why not produce a symposium program and feature the attendees with photos and short bios so everyone attending the trade show could have a professional handbook with everyone's contact information for easy reference? And finally, one more theme that I drew upon was my love for cooking Northern Italian food. Why not monetize my recipes and send them to my clients as useful sticky points and call myself the culinary banker? The result, 12 recognition awards and Business Development Officer of the Year multiple times. So as we come back full circle to that question, why does such a creative person with such a resume have to pivot into commercial banking? And for that, I hearken to my friend, professor of physics at Harvard, Gerald Holton, who writes a very interesting quote here. The strength of the commitment to childhood themes is so powerful that rather bend or suppress themes in order to carry on a successful career, some have switched fields, looking for a place where their themata could attain full expression. Now, today, I'm currently developing a creativity and its application to business workshop that can be taught in person or offered as online training through my company, the Tutti Academy. 3 programs to teach executives and sales divisions how to use creativity to tap into their unique identity to avoid the pitfalls of emulation and pronounce upon what Bill Ellemeyer often calls sticky points. So for those of you who are interested, there are 3 programs. Identity Autonomy will introduce action-based practices, which will increase personal awareness and effectiveness to help build personal achievement and positive relationships based on your unique qualities. Identity Marketing trains the salesperson to write out the pain of their ideal client and the paradise you bring to them with your product, services, and value propositions. And Identity Branding trains the salesperson to create their own personal branding statement. Those of you interested, you just simply scan the QR code, or I put the link in the chat, or Lilia was kind enough to do so. And I've also included a list of the books used in this presentation and links to order them from Amazon.